Hey everyone, welcome to the RotoGrinders Morning Grind podcast. I'm your host, Stevietpfl. It's Wednesday. It's November 1st. Yes, November is here and upon us. It's 2023. We have 13 basketball games to talk about here on today's podcast. Joined today by my buddy Keith Eister. Eys819. Keith, what's happening, my friend?
Stevie, are you sure that's you, Stevie? Like, anybody not watching the video feed, we've got a little Halloween hangover going on here, it looks like. Is that the Mad Hatter? What I was on with Spider-Man earlier, TJ and I did crunch time. So I've done a show with Spider-Man today. What do we got going on over there?
Someone said Slash. I should have went with Slash, but yeah, Mad Hatter. The kids, I think it was 2 or 3 years, 4 years. I don't know. I can't remember. We did. My wife was the Queen of Hearts. I was the Mad Hatter, and her daughter dressed up as well. So it was fun. But yeah, I always I don't ever wear costumes unless the family does it. But I always have the Mad Hatter wig and the hat. So I was rocking it, but it's itchy and it's probably not going to last long. I can barely hear Keith. So my head. Listen, what you don't know, Richie, is I have a fan that's by my feet that I always have on. So unless I can't find the remote, but I know where the remote is right now. So it's a running joke. It is a running joke. Yes. So Keith, 13 games to talk about here today. Man, big slate.
Yeah, huge slate. All kinds of injury news that we're going to be waiting on too. Feels like NBA has just thrown us right in the middle of mid-season injury form. I feel like the beginning of the season is usually pretty calm, but it has not started out this way. There's been a ton of injuries, ton of teams playing shorthanded already. So I think we're going to see a lot more of the same on this massive slate.
Big trades right at the beginning of the season. Yep. NFL trade deadline went down here on Tuesday, recording on Tuesday night, like always. What's up, YouTube? Hope you're having a fantastic Halloween. Hope you enjoyed it. No, I don't point the fan up. It's just on my legs. And it's to the side. But yeah, I mean, NBA, even on the 3-game slate, like you mentioned, for yesterday's slate, so much going on already that it feels like we're playing February basketball already. So I don't know. I was talking to someone about this yesterday, actually, and I was like, the NBA just almost needs to do what the NFL has done, where an hour and a half you have to have your inactives. An hour and a half before the game, you have to have your inactives. At least at that point, we would know, right? We would just know that at least 7 o'clock, we have plenty of time. The 10 o'clock games, you could check back in, during pre-lock and stuff. And I feel like the NBA has to do something like that because it's just a mess. It's just a mess. And fantasy has been around now, but betting is becoming more and more popular. And these leagues are benefiting a ton from betting. I mean, people watch games and stuff because of betting. And I feel like it just has to get to a point where something has to change with the NBA. Baseball, we get lineups 3 hours ahead of time. Football, we get inactives an hour and a half before game time. NBA, we find out 2 minutes before lock sometimes that someone's not going to play. And I feel like something has to change with NBA. And I know I'm preaching to the choir and we're 4 games in, but I'm already over it.
Man, I can tell you, as a guy that does projections and is responsible for getting good numbers out to the people before these games lock, that would be just absolutely amazing. Already Saturday, I was on. OG Anunoby was questionable most of the day, confirmed to be in 2 hours before game time, and then ruled out an hour before the game. So generally when a guy's questionable all day, we'll have our what if projection set up or whatever, and it's a quick copy and paste and we can get the new stuff in right away. But once a beat reporter, and it wasn't just one beat reporter, it was 3 that confirmed that OG was going to play on Saturday, and then just out of nowhere, boom, OG is out. So situations like that are just really hectic from a projection standpoint. And like you said, with sports betting and things like that, if you guys were obviously we want to take advantage of situations like that. OG out means more usage for guys like Siakam or Barnes or whoever. If you went and made wagers based on OG being in and then he gets ruled out that's just, you've got your money in bad at that point. So yeah, some much better reporting would be hugely appreciated.
All right, we're not gonna talk too much about the Tuesday slate. Man, the Cavs, and we're gonna talk about this game here in a minute because like it's a flip flop back to back where like Cleveland played. They played in Cleveland on Tuesday night, and then they play in New York on Wednesday night. But man, that game disappointed. There is a lot, and like you and I were talking about this, and I just really quickly wanted to talk about this on the podcast part of the show, but you and I were talking about this pre-show. So I play single entry NBA. Everyone knows that. I've talked about it for years. It's just how I play NBA. I have 3 kids. I can't do what I used to do. So knowing that I had like Max Strauss tonight and knowing that I was like way behind, I ended up pivoting, even on a 3-game slate, pivoting off of like Goodwin and Norman Powell to Trey Jones, who I knew was going to be really low owned. And I pivoted Powell to Highland, and we don't have that ownership yet. But just kind of pivoting and just knowing like I have a lot of catching up to do. And I know you played Mitchell and Strauss, so I know you were further behind, and you went all in. You're like, I'm not going to catch up, and you're like, I'm taking Kevin Durant out and putting in Wimby. Just really want like. I feel like this is like a lost and forgotten art when it comes to NBA. Like if you're behind, and this is any DFS sport, baseball not as much, because I mean a guy can hit 4 home runs and it's way different. But like NBA, NFL, if you're behind, like going into the 4 o'clock slate for NFL, and you're probably not going to catch up, or if you're behind going into the 9 o'clock games on a main slate for NBA, like it's okay to finish last in a contest. Because like 1 out of 10 times, it's like I'm going to hit Kevin Durant might roll his ankle. No one wants that, right? But Kevin Durant might roll his ankle in the first 2 minutes of the game, and now you're playing catch up, and that's the only way that you were going to catch up anyway. So like finishing last, who cares? If you're not going to cash, you could finish 1 spot out of the cash with your chalky lineup and be like, oh man, I should have cashed 1 more rebound. Or you could be like, I finished last. Who cares? We move on to the next slate. But those times where like pivoting makes you money is why you're doing it. And like you're going to make more money by pivoting and like trying to catch up. And I just wanted to like really quickly talk about this. And I know I'll let you talk about yours, but you said, hey, I have Mitchell. I'm way behind. I have to do something. I don't want to fade Durant. Durant's the best player on the slate, but this is the only chance I'm catching up tonight.
Yeah, exactly. Mitchell underperformed. Strus way underperformed. And like it's a 3-game slate. I know these guys have ownership. But the biggest one, I played Dean Wade as well, which I didn't want to do, but he kind of made everything work. But I got 5 points from Dean Wade. And I'm like, I'm so far behind anybody that has like these 4K guys, Norm Powell, Bones Highland, all the Suns guys as well. Like I have no chance to win playing Durant. I need Durant to fail or at least perform as Mitchell did. So if I can fade that, and I don't know what his exact ownership is, somewhere around 45%, I think. If I can pass 45% of the field by getting a big score from another guy other than Kevin Durant puts up 40 just like Mitchell did, but I can get 50 from somebody, like that's going to put me back in the running to like more than min cash. Like I'm not out here trying to min cash. I'm trying to get somewhere near the top of the tournament. So the 2 guys that I found with huge ceiling, Kawhi, he's going to be owned as well. But I feel like he can outscore Durant and Wembanyama. Like we don't know what this guy is capable of. We've seen 150-point game already. But he has the ceiling of Durant, and he's going to be way, way less owned. So being that far behind, you just have to do some uncomfortable things. And then however much money I had left, I filled out the other 2 spots, ended up with Wendell Carter Jr., who I think can put up 40 in this spot as well. But it's not comfortable. I don't like my lineup near as much as I did at lock, but the way things unfolded in that first game, I felt like I had to make some moves. And like you said, I don't think enough people react to the information that they have.
You have to. I mean, like, again, if you know you're probably not going to cash with like a player duds. I have a wide receiver get 2 catches in the early games, and I know that like I have a chalky combo. Throw in a Sam Howell low-owned combo. And like it's not always going to work. It's probably going to work less than 30% of the time. But that's 30% more than, not cashing and finishing right. Oh, I finished right outside the cash line. Darn it. It's okay to finish last in contests, especially tournaments. All right. So Just wanted to you and I had talked about it before the show, and like it was fresh on my mind, and I know we spent a few minutes on it, but I just wanted to refresh everybody with NBA, and I find myself doing it in NBA way more than I do it in any other sport. I do it with NFL as well, but I feel like NBA, like anybody can have a night, and I know like I have to play catch up sometimes, so I find myself doing it with NBA way more than I do it with any other sport. So I do I do set it. I have an alarm on my phone for 3 o'clock on Sunday to go through and see on teams do I need to play catch up? Do I need to do something different? So, I mean, I've been doing that for years. So, anyway, moving on. Basketball, 13 games. It's going to be a long podcast because it's 13 games. We already killed a lot of time, but I felt like it was important. So, Milwaukee at Toronto, 224.5 total. Milwaukee a 5-point favorite. Milwaukee good to go as far as the injury report. Toronto side, Precious is doubtful. So let's start with the Milwaukee side. Keith, I think everyone was kind of worried coming into the season what the usage was going to look like for Milwaukee. And I'm starting to get concerned about playing Giannis at this monster price tag. Dame is not Drew Holiday. Dame is going to demand shots. Dame has a 28% usage rate, and his assist rate's higher than Giannis's. Like, now we're getting to the point where like Giannis isn't showing this like triple double upside. Like he's had 3 and 2 assists in these 3 games. Like, we're seeing Dame really cut into the assist numbers for Giannis, and the rebounding in general just has been better across the board for Milwaukee. I have a tough time playing Giannis or Dame. I think like if anything, maybe you go down, but this might be a team I'm just kind of staying away from. I think Malik Beasley might be the guy I take shots on in large field tournaments if I'm running like 150, but I think Dame and Giannis's prices need to come down.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Like, there's just not enough usage for them to get to the like last year's production even. And then you put in this matchup as well. Toronto is the slowest team in the NBA through the first couple of games here this season. They've been playing solid enough defense. So I'm with you. It's one of 2 early games, 13 game slate. So all kinds of news we could be waiting on still at this point. I'm out on this Milwaukee side for sure, and mostly on the Toronto side as well because of how good Milwaukee plays defense. Like Middleton, you can't play yet. He doesn't have enough minutes. The price for Dame and Giannis is too much at this point. There's really nothing I'm looking at here at Milwaukee. I don't mind Beasley, but I think I'd rather just save the roster spots and wait and see what news I can find out later on in the slate.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a ton of interest in Milwaukee. I do like the Toronto side. Scotty Barnes is here to stay. His price is catching up now. I think that we just got to accept this new role from him. Like, he's taken at least 14 shots in every game. The other thing I wanted to mention was, I don't know, like, if I play him in DFS because he is priced, I think, appropriately, but in like the pick'em like streets, or like if you are in a state where you prop bet, Dennis Schroeder's assist rate is 40% through the first 4 games this season. He's had at least 7 assists in each of the first 4 games. I don't think that's going to slow down. I think he's accepting this role of getting Barnes and Siakam and Gary Trent the ball. I think Dennis Schroeder is someone you're looking for in the pick'em streets on his assist total here. Or, like I said, if you're in a state where you can bet, like his assist prop, if it comes in at like 6.5, I think that we just continue to trust this like massive assist rate through the first 4 games.
Yeah, those are the 2 guys I had circled for this game, for this side as well. Scotty Barnes has been playing incredible. He's been a lot more involved. Usage is up. He's handling the ball more. Had that triple-double against Chicago. So Scotty Barnes, the price is coming up, as you said. Like, I don't think he's a must play or anything, but he has a different ceiling than the Scotty Barnes that we're used to. And then Schroeder just being like the true point guard in this spot. And Scotty Barnes playing a little bit of point too. Like, they're not going to run Malachi Flynn out there for a ton of minutes. So it's Schroeder and Scotty Barnes handling the ball most in this offense. I don't think I'm paying up for Siakam, but I do want a little bit of Barnes, a little bit of Schroeder. That's about all I got here on Toronto.
Yeah, and we should know OG will play in this game.
Yeah.
Portland
Precious
at
doubtful, I think, but
yeah,
that's not a huge deal.
Yeah, I don't think it matters too much. Portland at Detroit, 214.5 total. Detroit a 4-point favorite. Simmons is out for Portland. Bogdanovich and Livers out for Detroit. My boy Jalen Duren got hurt the other night. He's questionable. He's dealing with an ankle sprain. He wasn't going to crush the other night anyway, and that game kind of got a little out of hand. But, man, it stinks when you play someone and they get hurt. And nothing better than that, all right? I was being sarcastic. All right, Portland, a team that, like, coming into the season, I was like, where is the usage going to go? And I feel like we're still pretty early in trying to figure out where the usage is going to go on the Portland side. But I think we have to take notice to, like, Brogdon playing this, like, really solid role. I think we need to take notice into, like, Sharp is maybe the most groomed player, young player on this team right now. I know we all kind of want it to be Scoot Henderson, but, like, I mean, we're looking at Brogdon's 30% usage rate, and we're like, is this going to continue? I mean, I don't see it stopping. I think this is a game you want to target overall. Detroit's young, and I think that, like, we want to target Portland here.
Yeah, this is going to be a much tougher game to fade of the two early games. Brogdon is definitely the target here on Portland. Coming off the bench, but still playing plenty of minutes. Usage rate has been insane. Scoot Henderson is just not ready. He's probably going to be the most talented player on this team eventually. It may not be this year. He's going to get better as the season goes on. He's going to get better and better. But he looks really raw right now and not quite ready, which is understandable. He's like 19 years old. So Brogdon is the clear play. Shaedon Sharpe has had a nice role as well. Those are my two main targets. We did see Ayton pop off finally. He had 23 rebounds. Yeah, 23 rebounds. Usage is still not there for Ayton, but 6,500. Like, Detroit has rebounded the ball really well, so I'm not sure this is a spot for Ayton. I definitely prefer the guards in Brogdon and Sharpe. But just worth noting that Ayton finally put together a good game here. It's the two guards I think you want exposure to. Other than that, I'm fine passing on Jeremy Grant and DeAndre Ayton.
Yeah, I think if we do get news that Duren ends up sitting in this game, I think that's a bump to Ayton just overall. So pay attention to that news. I am a little concerned just in general about Ayton, and, like, is this going to be a spot that, like, Williams continues to take a few minutes when he's playing well? So we'll see. The game that, like, DeAndre Ayton had a big game against Toronto was the game that they ended up sitting out Williams for rest purposes early in the season here. So pay attention to that. But I assume Williams comes back and plays, and Ayton's big game was with Williams out. Sharpe, probably my favorite play here. I do want to note that, like, it's not translating into a ton of fantasy production, but Jeremiah Grant has a really nice usage rate through the first 4 games. It's going to happen. I don't know if it happens this game, but it's going to happen where he has like a 40, 45 plus fantasy point night, and his usage rate's too high. He's getting up enough shots. He took 18 shots against Toronto the other night. I think in large field tournaments, Jeremiah Grant is someone that you have to have on your list if you're playing more than 20 teams. Detroit side of this game, I mean, the Duren news is huge because if he were to sit, do they let James Wiseman go? I mean, is this a spot where I'm glad I'm not on the projection team, because, like, you're going to have to kind of project whether or not it's going to be Bagley or Wiseman. I assume Bagley starts if Duren doesn't play. But, I mean, James Wiseman is like this first round pick from 2020 that just hasn't worked out yet. And, like, he came out of college and he was extremely talented. So, I mean, I would probably assume that we are taking shots on, like, Isaiah Stewart and Bagley first, but, man, could this be the spot Wiseman finally gets a chance, or do we think that maybe they move Stewart to the 5 and, you know, get Thompson some extra minutes? I would love that because Thompson looks fantastic. So this is a game that I really like. I really like the Detroit side of this game as well. Even if Duren plays, I still have interest in Thompson, still have interest in Cunningham. And I would probably have interest in Duren if they say the sprained ankle is good to go and he's going to get his normal minutes.
Yeah, I mean, we have to like this Portland matchup is going to be an exploitable one all season long. They're not going to play any defense this year, so I definitely have interest in the Detroit side. I like Duren's price is coming up, but he has been a machine through first 3 games. I know he was having a bit of a rough one there against Oklahoma City, and then dealt with the injury. But man, it looks like he's taken a massive leap forward here. So 7K is a tough ask, but if he's going to grab somewhere between 12 and 15 boards a game, he's definitely going to be in play at that price. If he sits, I think it would be Bagley sliding into the starting lineup, and I think they have no choice but to give Wiseman a little bit of run. I think they like Stewart at the 4. He has really developed into like an outside shooter. He's taking a ton of 3-pointers. So like they're using Isaiah Stewart as almost a floor spacer at this point. I think Bagley and Wiseman would be the guys playing down low. So Bagley at 4K, assuming that he can stay out of foul trouble and get upwards of 28 to 30 minutes, he could be a smash in this spot. Wiseman probably looking at 20 to 22 minutes, but still like he has talent, hasn't put it together. Another guy who just fouls too much, but 3K minimum price. I think he would definitely be in play as well. And the Asar Thompson call, love that as well. Kid looks really talented, has rebounded at an extremely high rate to open the season. Like, I don't think anybody expected these rebounds, but like he just keeps on putting up production as a rebounder. Shots started to come around a little bit. He was struggling through the first 3 games, but 6 of 14 in the last game against Oklahoma City. Still hasn't found his 3-point stroke, but like early signs look really good on Asar Thompson. So 5,800 still too cheap for him. Even if Duren's in there, he's been seeing 30 minutes. So if there's a slight upwards mobility on that 30 minutes, if Duren does miss, then that's even better, but still too cheap for Thompson for sure.
Indiana at Boston, 231.5 total. Boston a 10.5 point favorite in this game. Halliburton is questionable, Mathurin is questionable, and Jalen Smith is questionable. Doesn't sound like a lot, but a lot of news here in this one, because like obviously Halliburton is one of the biggest news that we're going to be watching. Luckily, we get this news somewhat early on the slate. If Mathurin sits too, I mean, that's huge as well. He's dealing with like a little bit of an elbow issue. I know he hasn't had like a big game yet, and then like Jalen Smith is a guy that's playing, 15 to 20 minutes a night. So overall, we're watching all this news, but I think the biggest news here is whether or not Halliburton plays or not. It sounded like he rolled his ankle a little bit and like stepped on like Jalen Smith's foot or something like that. So it's way too early in the season for someone to like push it. So if he really is kind of acting up, I fully expect him to sit in this game. Especially in a game against Boston where you're 10.5 point dogs. I think that is something else we should mention. But talk to me here about the Pacers.
Yeah, I mean, I if Halliburton plays, I don't have a ton of interest. It's just a really brutal matchup against Boston. If he's out, you have to have interest just because you're taking massive usage and assist rates off the floor. Nembhard is probably the guy that steps in for him. He's not super cheap. He's 5,100, but he should have an incredible role if Halliburton sits. Take Mathurin off the floor as well, and then we're starting to talk about like best play on the slate type stuff for Nembhard. McConnell would enter the conversation a little bit at that point. They don't ever give him a ton of run, but he should be projected pretty well. If he can get like 24 minutes or something like that behind Nembhard, I think he's in play as well. The Jalen Smith stuff, that's not as big of a deal for me. I'm much more interested in like Halliburton, like his usage and his assist rate, replacing that type of thing is really the thing I'm watching here.
Yeah, I don't want it to go overlooked, but if Halliburton sits, Buddy Hield should get up a ton of shots in this game. Like we might see him shoot 18 to 22 times in this game. So tough matchup for him overall. But I mean, the shots are something that we should have circled on our sheet. If Halliburton sits and Mathurin plays, I like Mathurin. If they both sit, I think at that point, like you mentioned, Nembhard, McConnell. The other news that like because of like when you're considering price of these guys, if Jalen Smith sits, I think Obi Toppin and Nesmith are really interesting because like Obi Toppin played 24 minutes the other night. Like if he were to get 28 minutes in this game, he has a little bit of upside. But like if Nesmith, who's been in that like 23 to 30 minute range, if he got like 32 minutes in this game, even in a tougher matchup, they might let him go in the fourth quarter, like stay on the floor and play a little bit in garbage time. So like he might not be someone at the 8-minute mark if this game is like a 20-point game that comes off the floor. So watching the Jalen Smith news, definitely watching the Halliburton news, but I think for like thinking outside the box tournament, watching the Jalen Smith news as well here. I don't know how much Mathurin really matters, to be honest. Like it's not like he's playing 35 minutes a night.
His usage is his usage was awesome with the second unit last season. It has not been as strong with the first unit this season.
It happens that way sometimes too.
Yep, definitely.
All right. Boston side of this game, they're a really good team. I mean, it's just, they're going to have games like we saw the other night. Like Jaylen Brown's like, all right, my turn. Yeah. He shot 24 times and he shot 8 for 13 from 3 and scored almost 60 fantasy points. Maybe one of the most impossible teams to figure out this season is going to be the Boston Celtics. They have 4 really good players. And not saying like White and Horford and these guys are not good players. Tatum, Porzingis, Brown, and Drew are 4 players that could go on to any other team and produce. So, I mean, on a nightly basis, it's tough. I still think Drew is priced the most favorable for us. But, I mean, we saw the other night what Jaylen Brown can do. We know that Porzingis is going to demand shots. I don't think Porzingis has the ceiling as like a Tatum and Brown. I think those guys can kind of generate their own shots. Overall, I don't have a ton of interest here. It's just not a game that I love. If anything, maybe continuing to take shots of like Derek White off the bench, but I'm not going out of my way to play Boston here.
Yeah, I'm worried about the blowout risk for sure if Halliburton sits, but at the same time, I know I would have Indiana exposure if Halliburton sat as well. So I might want to run it back with a Celtic and just hope that Indiana can keep up that way, and just a way to play cheaper Indiana players and get a little bit unique with my lineup. The Brown price, I think, is the one that jumps off the page to me. We just saw the ceiling. He doesn't even need to do that much. Like just 30 points is good to where he gets to like 45 DK. Like that's useful at 7,700. The matchup is outstanding. Indiana plays really fast. They're not good on defense. So I don't hate taking shots. I think I only do it though if Halliburton sits. Otherwise, I feel like I can just avoid this game. I don't want to use an expensive stack like Tatum Halliburton or even Brown Halliburton. So if Tatum is out, I take a little closer look at guys like Jaylen Brown and maybe Porzingis. I think I kind of agree with you that I'm not sure the ceiling is there playing next to Tatum and Brown. I think Tatum, I'd try to get up to Tatum before I went to Porzingis, but we'll see what the news breaks out. A game I'm hoping to be able to avoid.
All right, Washington at Atlanta, 237.5 total in this game. Atlanta, an 8-point favorite here. Again, some big news that we're going to be watching in this game. Gafford's questionable on Washington. That's not what I'm talking about. Trae Young is questionable on Atlanta, and then Matthews is out. Trae Young would be huge. I mean, Washington has been one of the worst defensive teams through the first few games here, and I know it's really early to look at that, but Atlanta hasn't been much better, and Washington and Atlanta are both inside the top 8 in pace. They like to push the pace. This game is going to have a lot of pace with a lot of scoring and very little defense. Let's go to the Washington side first here. I mean, I haven't played Jordan Poole a lot. I don't know if I've played him at all. I think this is the spot that we're looking at him. I think we're looking at Tyus Jones. Luckily, like Tyus Jones' price has come up a little bit where I feel like it might scare some people off. I think Gafford being questionable, if he were to sit in this game, I think that could potentially bump up some of these other guys, but not as much as like my love for Poole, Kuzma, Jones in this spot. This is a game stack for me. I think this is a game where you can get 3 to 5 pieces and just say, this game is going to be high scoring and I want exposure to a game stack.
Yeah, I was surprised to see the Washington pace leading the NBA, like you said. Very surprising. Atlanta is 8th, so this is an awesome game environment here. No defense being played either. Washington is second worst in defensive rating. And you said it's early in the season, but just looking at this roster, that makes sense. I feel like that's going to be sticky. Poole is a guy that likes to push the pace, but doesn't play a ton of defense. Kuzma is not great on the defensive end. So I could see this team struggling on defense for sure all season long. Gafford inside is not a great defender. And then they have like guys behind them like Kisper, who doesn't play defense at all. So I feel like this Washington team is going to be a team that we're looking at game stacks quite a bit. Like we know where the usage is going. Poole and Kuzma. Tyus, as long as he's cheap, is going to be in play as well. So I'm with you. Like those are my three favorites. I think you can sprinkle in a little Avdia as well. A little worried about the usage early in the season, but he's a guy that can get hot shooting it, and we could see a decent game from him. He can rebound a little bit as well. If Gafford is out, we saw this last game, I believe it was, they started Koulibaly over somebody like Muscala. So I don't know that I have any interest in those guys on a huge slate. But just for the game environment, Poole, Kuzma, Tyus, I do have interest in.
Josh in chat says he's seeing Washington 15th in pace. I don't know if Hollinger's using preseason data or not, but if you go to NBA.com and go to stats and filter to advanced, I love using the NBA official stats. That's where I'm going to, if you ever hear me reference like stats, defensive rating, offensive rating, assist rates, stuff like that, 95% of the time it's going to be NBA stats or court IQ. Those are like the two main things that I use for NBA when it comes to this kind of stuff. Atlanta side of this game, Keith, Trae Young is huge here because if he sits, DeJounte Murray is the best play on the slate. Don't overthink this. Play DeJounte Murray. If Trae Young plays, I still have a ton of interest in DeJounte Murray. I think this is a spot where DeJounte Murray is appropriately priced and a fantastic game. Still have some interest in Capella. His price is kind of priced appropriately. Have a ton of interest in Jalen Johnson. I know he kind of busted the other night. It wasn't necessarily a terrible game. He just didn't have like the rebounding numbers, and he only had like 7 shot attempts, even though they were like good shot attempts. They just kind of blew that game away. I think this is a great bounce back spot for him. I mean, you can get into some of these secondary pieces like Bogdanovich and Bey if like Young sits. Bogdanovich is not playing a ton of minutes. So, like, I really want to see Trae Young sit on a 13-game slate for me to get to like Bogdanovich. I think they just kind of shorten the rotations a little bit with Trae Young out if he sits. So I think all these guys would get a bump here. I want a Kongu to be a thing. He's playing enough minutes where him to be really close to being a thing. His fantasy point per minute production is just so good. It's just like, come on, man, let's go. What are your thoughts here on the Atlanta side?
If Trae Young sits, they're going to be my highest exposed team for sure. Murray would be an absolute smash at 7,300. He's a 9K player. If Trae Young is off the floor, should see massive usage rates, should handle the ball a ton, rack up assists, legit triple-double upside in this matchup if Trae Young sits. I like the Jalen Johnson thing as well. A dude that's been playing significant minutes this season, has been rebounding well, gets enough usage. 5,400 is still too cheap in a great matchup. So I like that. Capella, if Gafford is out, like who is going to stop Capella from grabbing 15 rebounds in the spot? Like Washington's not a great rebounding team anyway. Without Gafford, I think Capella could legitimately put up 15 rebounds. So I would have interest, especially if Gafford misses. If Trae is in, I think DeJounte is the only play I'm really looking at here. I agree with you that he's just kind of priced appropriately, and the matchup is outstanding. So you can certainly take shots on DeJounte even if Trae misses or if Trae is in.
Yeah, I was kind of looking on game flow to try to see like who's getting the backup like 5 minutes to try to project like what would happen here, and like I don't even know because like it would probably be Gallinari or Kaspert. Like and like
a little, but yeah, it's there is not a true big behind Gafford at all on this team.
Right. I mean, yeah. And they really haven't shown that like Washington really hasn't shown that like they want to use Muscala, and that's understandable. So I don't know. Like I agree with you on the Capella point. That's all I was trying to get to was he's another guy that like I have circled and I have written down already to see what his pick'em projection comes out at for his rebound number. Or if you're in the sports books, there's just no NBA stuff up yet. So I was he's another one that I had written down earlier today.
Yeah, if he comes out at like 11.5 rebounds, I'd be smashing that.
He has been coming in at like 9.5 and like 10.5. So paying attention to that one. All right, New Orleans at OKC. 225.5 total. The Thunder, a 3.5 point favorite. Alvarado, Marshall out. Ingram questionable on the New Orleans side. And then both Williams out for the Thunder. That is Jalen and Kendrick. New Orleans first. Ingram sits. Obviously, that's going to be a bump. We have a 1-game sample size to kind of look at with that. What do you like here for the Pelicans?
Yeah, Ingram sitting, jammed as many Pelicans as I could fit. I think it was Sunday or Saturday, maybe when Ingram got ruled out.
It was Monday.
Zion
just,
just,
I think it was Monday. I think it was Monday.
Yeah, you might be right. Zion's just not playing enough minutes at this point. I don't think he's been sitting right around 30 minutes like the whole season. So I don't think they're going to push him. I would lean to McCollum over Zion if Ingram does get ruled out. He's too cheap in that spot. 7,200 would see a huge uptick in usage. Valanciunas would be in play as well. Tried some Herb Jones last time. That didn't work out. The one guy who did kind of work out is Jordan Hawkins. His price is up a little bit now to 3,800. He was 3,200 on Monday. But like that's still a value play if Ingram misses. Ingram plays in this game. I have a little interest in Ingram, but that's about it. I would have far less interest in this game if he's in there.
Yeah, if Ingram sits, I think Hawkins is one of the best value plays on the entire slate. Kind of looking at the game flow of that one, he got the fourth quarter like garbage minutes against Golden State, where he was on the floor for the last 4 minutes of that game. He had played 30 minutes before then. He closed in the second quarter. He played a really long stretch in the first quarter. He didn't take a long break in the second quarter, and did the same thing in the third quarter. So, like, looking at game flow, I think Jordan Hawkins, if Ingram sits, he's just too cheap for the opportunities he's going to have. So I agree with you. If Ingram is out, I have a ton of interest in CJ McCollum. We know Zion's ceiling is massive, but I feel like he's kind of capped minutes-wise. They did bring him back early in the fourth in that Golden State game, and that game just continued to get out of hand. So had they let him play the last 5 minutes of that game, he would have been, 35 minutes in that game if it was a close game. So would they have kept him out there? That's a huge question mark. We don't know. So can this game, if it stays close, will they give him that extra 5 minutes? So 30 minutes was really like a good sign, and like he only came out because of the blowout. He checked out at the same time like CJ McCollum and Valanciunas checked out. So I think large field tournament stuff, you could attack the ceiling for Zion, but at 8,800 on DraftKings, I don't have FanDuel up in front of me. You're just really hoping that he gets that 35-minute number. Could he have ceiling at 30 minutes at 8,800? Yeah. His ceiling just goes up a lot more because if he averages 2 fantasy points per minute and like you're getting that extra 10 fantasy points, if he gets the extra 5 minutes, that's huge for 8,800. So really like Jordan Hawkins. If Ingram sits, really like Jordan Hawkins. The other guy that I wanted to bring up was Matt Ryan. He played 27 minutes. He got a little bit of garbage time run, but he played 26 minutes the game before that. I've read some really good reports about him and how they want to use this guy. So like if Ingram sits, I think you could take shots on Matt Ryan too at 3,400. No, it's not Atlanta Falcons, Matt Ryan. All right. Thunder decided this game. Really impressed again, just every time I watch SGA play. I just very, very talented. Holmgren is starting to show that he's very talented. His price is just caught up. He's shown that he has that like ceiling to have these big games. So I don't think he's someone you want to like cross off. Jalen Williams continues to play really well. I like the Thunder, Keith, because like if I'm playing these guys, there's 4 guys. It's Giddey, it's SGA, it's Holmgren, it's Jalen Williams. And like I don't have to play anybody else on this team and I feel okay. I know Lou Dort will have games from time to time. He's just not my favorite play from this team. He has to shoot so lights out to get there. I can play one of those or two of those 4 guys and move on.
Yep, I think you nailed it. Same 4 guys for me, SGA, and I'll go ahead and rank them too. SGA, Holmgren, Williams, Giddey would be 4th for me. Jalen Williams is just too cheap for his role. We've seen his usage come up this season. Really nice. This Thunder team is talented. There's a lot of young talent on this team. Chet has played really well. He adds upside with his block ability. 4 blocks again in the last game. There's not many guys that have upside for like 4 or 5 blocks in a game. Wemby is obviously one of them, but Chet is on that same level with he can just rack up a ton of blocks. Usage has been pretty solid. Rebounding is left a little bit to be desired, which makes sense. He's got a lot of filling out to do. Still a little bit weak compared to for NBA standards. But the scoring and the shot blocking, like rim protection, has looked really good. So I do like Chet a good amount as well.
The other thing I wanted to mention that I had wrote down on my notes was like SGA's assist rate looks really good, and he's rebounding. Like SGA is quickly becoming like a triple-double upside type play. So like this is a guy that like didn't need triple doubles to get to 60. Now we're like considering him like triple-double threat. Like this is a guy that can go for 80, and we don't talk about that very often. Like it's not Luka, but like his numbers are really consistent, and like he's a guy that can add 4 or 5 steals too. Like SGA, every slate should be considered a top play, and he doesn't get the ownership because like no one wants to pay 10-4 for SGA, and you should. Brooklyn at Miami, 222.5 total in this game. Miami is 6-point favorite. Brooklyn side, Claxton out, Cam Johnson out, DSJ and Dinwiddie doubtful, which is huge because with Dinwiddie doubtful and DSJ doubtful, that's a lot of the guard play. Talk about that in a second. Miami side, Butler questionable, Highsmith questionable, Caleb Martin out. A lot of injury news on this game. Typically not a game that I would like have a ton of interest in. Like we get 2 teams that are not going to really push the pace. And I mean, Miami for years, they've been just a really solid defensive team. Not typically a game that I would have a lot of interest in, but now we're looking at too many people out not to have interest in this game. I mean, Ben Simmons is going to have to play a lot of point in this game. And like, he's obviously someone that offers you some triple-double upside. Bridges is going to get a little usage bump here with Dinwiddie out. Cam Thomas is going to get a usage bump with Dinwiddie out. Finney Smith is going to have to play minutes. My question to you is, does Lonnie Walker get like a 30-minute game here? Like with all these guys potentially, I mean, with doubtful tags night before, you don't typically see people play. I think Lonnie Walker is going to have to play minutes in this game. I think like now we're like with DSJ being out too, like it's another extra like 15 minutes. I just don't love the spot, but man, I love the minutes and I love the price tag here for Brooklyn.
Yeah, you have to have interest here. Claxton and Cam Johnson already out, have been out for a couple of games, and now you add Dinwiddie and DSJ to the mix as likely to miss as well. Cam Thomas is the name that jumps off the page. Like, dude is just going to be chucking in this game. 6,600. Believe he scored 30 actual points in all 3 games. Yep, at least 30 points in all 3 games. Like, he is just a guy that can put it in the bucket anytime. So I do like, he doesn't do a ton else, but he scores enough to be very much in play. Dorian Finney-Smith put up an awesome game on Monday. I don't know that we can expect that again, but he's certainly in play. Royce O'Neal disappointed on Monday. Another guy who should play 30 minutes in this spot. I think you can go back to Royce O'Neal despite the disappointing outing last game. He's not going to score a ton, but he generally does more peripherally than he did on Monday. Only 2 rebounds, 0 assists, and 0 steals too. He did grab two blocks, but he should rebound a little bit more. He should dish out a couple assists and then give you like 8 to 12 actual points. So 4,700 for a guy that's going to play 30 plus minutes. Royce is in play as well. I think you're onto something here with Lonnie Walker. He is the guy who got a little extended run on Monday, 29 minutes in that one. Now you're a full game without Dinwiddie. Like, they just don't have any guards left. I think Lonnie could easily play 30 minutes in this spot. So like that call. Another guy that he can score in bunches, doesn't do a ton peripherally, although he did do enough on Monday. I think you definitely can be looking at going back to Lonnie Walker.
So Lonnie Walker, again, using Game Flow. If you haven't checked out Game Flow on Court IQ, you're missing out. He ended up playing 17 second half minutes in that game, and he started the second half. And that was with DSJ still active. Like DSJ got hurt in the third quarter of that game. So like Lonnie Walker started the second half for Dinwiddie, checked in for and played a lot for Dinwiddie when Dinwiddie was hurt. So I think Lonnie Walker starts in this game, and I think he plays over 30 minutes in this game. And at 4,800, again, not the greatest matchup in the world, but I mean, like you said, he can score in bunches. So
the other guy I think could be in consideration for a start, like if they just decide to go bigger and Day'Ron Sharpe grabs a start. I'd still be really cautious on how many minutes he's going to play. Like I think 20 is maybe like a ceiling. But this is a massive per minute fantasy producer. So if Day'Ron Sharpe happens to grab a start, he's interesting at 4,500.
Yeah, so I mean, they just used a ton. So down the stretch, and again, they
have so many wings, so they just don't need to go big.
I know,
but all their wings are out now, or a lot of them.
Oh, good old Ben Simmons is still there. You know who should realistically eat in this game is Bam. Bam should eat in this game. They really don't have anybody to match up with Bam in this game. So I mean, shifting gears to the Miami side of this game, maybe this is the spot like they end up needing to use like Sharpe because they need him to play against Bam, and like Bam abuses the inside early in the game. But I don't think they have anybody to match up with Bam. If Butler sits, Tyler Hero's too cheap. I think that's the direct correlation, especially with Martin already ruled out. The interesting thing here is like Richardson came back the other night. He played 23 minutes. Maybe he plays a couple extra minutes in this game. I think another one that we should mention is Kevin Love. If Butler sits, could play a couple extra minutes, but I'm not too crazy about that. Overall, I think that Miami is an interesting team depending on who's in and who's out.
Yeah, I don't have a ton of interest if Butler and Bam play, and Bam's probable, so looking like he will. But if Butler's in, I just don't have a ton of interest. It's a slower paced team. Not much to add there. If Butler misses, I love the hero call. I like the matchup for Bam, as you touched on as well. Probably not going much deeper on that. It's Bam and Hero are the two targets, and I'm really only interested if Butler's out.
All right, moving on. We got Cleveland at New York. Hey, both these teams are back to back. They played each other.
Just saw this game. Yep.
Yeah, I know. They just played each other. Someone in chat, I forget who it was, and I'm sorry. Oh, Derek posted that they announced that Mitchell says he will play the back-to-back. Don't be shocked if he gets ruled out. That's all I'm going to say. I know they announced that, but with a hamstring injury coming into Tuesday's game, and you always worry about hamstrings. So, looking at this, like Garland's dealing with a hamstring. He sat Tuesday. Levert's dealing with a hamstring, which kind of came out of nowhere. Maybe my thing here with this, Keith, was this the classic Mitchell plays the first half, we give his hamstring a rest, it's really early in the season, second half, and Levert plays the second half because we rested him in the first half kind of thing?
It could be, but I think that Levert did truly injure his hamstring. I don't know. Like we'll have to see. If Mitchell says he's playing, I tend to believe him. They are so shorthanded. Like Garland's going to be out again. Allen's going to be out again. It's really Mitchell and Levert that we're monitoring here. It wouldn't shock me to see Mitchell sit, but if he says he's playing, I just kind of have to trust that, which makes this a really unappealing game to me. Again, I'm really only interested in the game if Mitchell is out. Mobley would become an awesome option in that. We saw his usage spike the last game that Mitchell missed, and Levert has had a ton of usage as well. Again, we just kind of have to keep an eye on whether those two guys are playing, but only really interested in this game if Mitchell is out.
Yeah, I mean, just not a great game. The only reason that we played a lot of this game on Tuesday is because there's a 3-game slate and there's a lot of people out. I will say, you mentioned like Allen and like him being out, he's getting really close. I know he was practicing Monday. It was a bone bruise, so that's like a play through the pain kind of injury. So like he's really close. So watch that news. I mean, there's potential that he plays in this game, and that makes this game even worse. I personally, this game, I don't have any interest on either side if everyone's good to go. If they rule some people out on the second end of a back-to-back, but even looking through, like, Jalen Brunson played 34 minutes and Randall played 31 minutes. Everyone else on both sides is under 30 minutes in this game. I don't think we get a ton of people out if people start sitting. So, not my favorite game. Do you have anything from the Knicks?
I mean, Brunson for the upside is about the only thing. Quickly's price is adjusted enough where I don't love that as a play. Yeah, that's about it.
How do we make this game any different on our flights to New York for 100,
Yeah,
please?
right.
Denver at Minnesota, 223.5 total here. Denver a 3-point favorite. Both these teams are good to go. Everyone that has a question tag on DraftKings is probable on the injury report, so not worried about that. Going Denver first here. I mean, Jokic is really good, and this is a spot where we could see him go for 70 plus. If he doesn't go for 70 plus, like 60, I don't know if it's enough at 12K on a 13-game slate. What are your thoughts here on Denver?
Yeah, I mean, always want a little exposure to Jokic. I think I prefer Luka if I'm spending up. I do prefer Jokic to Giannis if he's in the conversation. But I think I get more exposure to Luka, just like the matchup a little bit better for him. Jamal Murray is always in play as well for the upside. I wouldn't play Jokic and Murray together. You just hope one of them has a ceiling game. I don't have a ton of interest. Michael Porter Jr. is still cheap enough you could take shots, but I don't know how much I get there. Aaron Gordon's been playing well. Just Jokic and Murray do so much for this team. It's hard to play secondary pieces. Should be a competitive game though, so you could talk me into some of the other secondary pieces.
Yeah, I mean, like how does Jokic not get there? Well, I mean, he doesn't get there if like Murray or MPJ have a big game. So like if you're not playing Jokic and you're like, all right, well, maybe Jokic goes for 50 tonight, fantasy points wise, and like who's going to benefit? I think it directly correlates with Murray and Porter Jr. So I think that's how you would do that. But I agree with you, especially with Kyrie questionable. As of right now, I would definitely have Luka over Jokic, and I mean Luka's just a beast. Minnesota side, I mean Edwards is going to be someone that we're going to talk about like a lot this year for like just scoring purposes, but like 9,300 is a tough ask for a guy. His assist rate is up, which is good to see. It's just a tough price tag. It's a tough matchup. If anything, maybe this is a spot we take some shots on like Rudy Gobert, but I don't know if that's even like possible on like this big 13-game slate.
Yeah, I don't have much interest in this Minnesota side at all. I don't want to target Gobert against Jokic. Edwards, you can play for the ceiling, but it's just a slow-paced game. I don't have a ton of interest here. McDaniels came back last game, which affected Naz Reid a little bit. Pulling up his minutes a little. He still played 24, but that 28 minutes in the game he smashed was nice. Not sure we can get that if McDaniels plays. It's Edwards or nothing, I think, here for me.
Yeah, and again, like Edwards would probably be someone I lean more on like the pick 'em and prop side than anything else. Yeah. And I think Jaden McDaniels is super talented, and we want to continue to closely watch his minutes because his minutes are going to get ramped. Like he's going to play more minutes. I don't know if this is necessarily a spot, but we have McDaniels as someone we definitely want to pay attention to. Charlotte at Houston, 224 total. Houston, a 1.5-point favorite. On the Charlotte side, Miles Bridges is out. Cody Martin is out. Nick Lakina is out. On the Houston side, Eason and Depot still out. Charlotte first. What do we got here when we're looking at Charlotte?
The LaMelo price is tough at this point. They said they were going to try to keep him around 30 minutes most games. He's 33 is the most he's played, so I think they're sticking to that. It's a great spot against Houston. It's a game that I want to target, but I don't know if I can pay 9,600 for LaMelo if he can only play 32, 33 minutes. Rozier, I think, is interesting at 7K. I like the game environment here. A guy we've seen him play a bunch of minutes. Mark Williams is off to a solid start this season. I think he is in play. Obviously, have to watch the foul trouble there, but he's like, if he can get 26 to 28 minutes, I think this is a fantastic spot for him. PJ Washington is okay. Brandon Miller off the bench has just kind of been like that guy that just comes in and ignites the offense. So Brandon Miller, I think, is a little bit sneaky in this spot. Like, Houston's a team that we want to target. So I'm looking for as many Charlotte pieces as I can find here. Brandon Miller off the bench, I think, is super interesting.
Two quick things. LaMelo, foul trouble last game. Don't be too concerned about his minutes, I don't think. When he's good to go, he's good to go. Mark Williams, foul trouble against Detroit, only played 21 minutes. The Brooklyn game went super small. He didn't check back in after checking out in the third quarter of that game. He closed the first half of that game. So he was at 15 minutes the first half and just didn't come back and get his normal second half run. I think a lot of that had to do with Brandon Miller playing so well. I mean, I keep pounding the drum on Brandon Miller. I think he's extremely talented. So I think this is actually an excellent spot for Mark Williams. And like, I think like people potentially off of him, if you just click his name on game log, I think you're going to like it. I think ownership's going to be down, and there's reasoning for both of the games that like he didn't get 30 minutes. There's reasoning. I don't think this game goes small. I think they need Mark Williams to go out there and play with Sengun, and Sengun is a guy that's playing 30 plus minutes a night. So I think this is a great spot for Mark Williams, bounce back. Rozier, Ball, these guys are playable. And again, like I'm going to keep saying it, I think Brandon Miller, his usage on the second unit is going to be massive. He's playing on the second unit. Like they roll out like PJ Washington a lot in that second unit, but like he's playing with like Theo Maledon, Nick Richards, and JT Thor. Brandon Miller is going to continue to have a huge usage rate because of who he's playing with. And like his usage rate's 21%, but it's a lot higher once you take off like Rozier. So again, like big usage with the second unit. He's a guy that can go 6-7x until he gets priced appropriate. I think we keep playing him. So I think Charlotte, a team that we can save some money on and take some Mark Williams, take some Miller. And as much as I hate to say it, take some PJ Washington. He's playing a ton of minutes. A minutes equal opportunity. Houston's not a great rebounding team. I think PJ Washington, another guy. As much as I love Lonzo Ball and want to play him, I think this is a spot we save some money. Houston side, VanVleet is, I just don't know if he's enough of a usage guy. I know he's going to have these games where he has like triple-double upside, so like he's always in play. I think Sengun smashes in the spot. I know we just got that talking about like Mark Williams. Sengun, like Charlotte's one of the worst teams against bigs, and I know they brought in Mark Williams. He's not much better. Love this spot for Sengun, and I really like Jabari Smith in this spot. I think Jabari Smith has a lot of upside at 5,500, so those are my two main targets. Always got to mention Jalen Green. He's going to put up 20 shots on most nights. He's just not going to get a ton of assists and stuff with it.
Yeah, I love the Sengun call. I'm completely with you. I think this is a smash spot for him. Price tag is up there. I don't know how popular he's going to get, but we've seen the 50-point upside multiple times from him. Can rack up a ton of rebounds and dish out enough assists. 50 DK points, certainly within the range. At 7,700, that's awesome. Jalen Green is the other guy that I like. Just 6,100. I feel like he has a massive ceiling at that price tag. So I like Jalen Green a good amount. Don't mind the Jabari Smith call. I can get to him a little bit too. Guy that contributes in most categories. 5,500 minutes have looked really good last two games. 34 in the last one, 37 before that. So if he's going to be out there for 35-ish minutes, I'm on board with that at 5,500 for sure.
All right, moving on. Chicago at Dallas, 225.5 total. Dallas, a 5.5-point favorite. Kyrie is questionable. Yes, Yeezy bigs against Charlotte. We're not stopping now. All right, Chicago side. I mean, they're good to go. Like Levine is probable. I feel like we're going to get a question tag on him a lot this year with this back. We finally saw Vooch kind of have a game the other night. Again, like really starting to see a trend with like big men against the Pacers. The Pacers not rebounding well to start the year. Just got to continue to watch that. I don't have a ton of interest in Chicago here. I'm not going to lie. It's a 13-game slate. I mean, I potentially get some Kobe White, but I feel like by the end of this, by lock time, I feel like there's going to be better value than Kobe White. DeRozan, Vooch, Levine, if you want to play these guys in like a 150 script, just make a group of like 0 to 1, because I don't think they're not guys that are gonna typically all three get there. So like just kind of take the ceiling and try to get the ceiling of one guy.
Yep, I love that comment right there. You put all three of them in the same group, 0 to 1. I don't want any more than one Chicago player in any lineup, but I'm going to be playing enough Luka that maybe I want to just hope that the game goes nuts or goes to overtime or something. Levine and DeRozan can certainly find ceilings. They have played awful to start the season, but they're generally guys who are priced in the 8K range. So there's certainly a ceiling here, and you could throw Vooch in there as well, 7,200 for a guy that, I mean, he has 50-point upside. He just did it against Indiana. So one of these guys has potential to go for 50. If I can find that on the other side of a Luka 80, then you're cooking. So I love that call to put all three in a group and play only one per lineup, but I don't mind exposure to any of the three.
Yeah, I mean, my concern is like on the Dallas side is like who's gonna match up against Vooch. I mean, Maxi Kleber, no. I mean, Lively, like Vooch might dominate if Derek Lively's out there. So like, I think like if I had to rank them, I think Vooch, it'd probably be Vooch, Levine, DeRozan. For me, DeRozan's consistent. He just doesn't have that like ceiling that Levine has, and I think that like the matchup provides more for Vooch. But on the Dallas side, if Kyrie's out, Luka's the best play in the slate. You start there and you just kind of make it work. His usage with Kyrie on the floor is solid. His usage with Kyrie off the floor is insane. He's the top play on the slate for me regardless. But man, I definitely want him if Kyrie sits.
Yeah, I mean, three games this season, over 70 DK points in all 3 games. We don't need to say much about Luka. There's going to be enough value by the time lock rolls around, and even into these games, there's plenty of news that we're waiting on. We're going to be able to find the value to get up to Luka. So he will be a primary part of my build. He's my favorite spend on the entire slate, with or without Kyrie. Kind of hope Kyrie plays so that Luka's ownership doesn't get out of hand, because if Kyrie sits, like first thing everyone's going to do is click Luka in their lineups. So hoping that Kyrie plays, Luka's really my only interest here, but it's extremely high interest.
As it should be, my friend, as it should be. All right, Memphis at Utah. And really quick, like on the Dallas side, there's going to be some projections that, I mean, I think Hardaway projects pretty decently in this game if Kyrie sits. Projection wise, I mean, maybe this is a spot if Kyrie sits, you could play a little bit of Hardaway, a little bit of Green, a little bit of Williams type of play. But Luka's the main play. And like, I just wanted to hammer that home really quick. But projections and like building out teams, definitely going to have some interest in some of these Dallas secondary pieces. And like, this is a spot you could do like a little 2-man Luka and someone else stack. Luka, his assist rate goes somewhere. I think Hardaway has the biggest upside of the group. All right, Memphis, Utah, 228.5. Utah 3-point favorite. Memphis, Adams, Clark, Morant out. Derrick Rose out. Got hurt the other night. Yeah, that's stunk. Memphis side, I mean, Bane, this seems like a really good spot for Bane. We got to pay up for him, obviously. I mean, Triple J has a big ceiling. His biggest thing is just staying out of foul trouble, but like, you want him to be aggressive though, because like his ceiling is definitely in the steals and the blocks. What do you like here for Memphis?
Yeah, I mean, prices on Bane and Triple J have come up, but Utah has been the worst defense in the league to start the season. So I think we still have to have interest. We've seen their ceilings. Until Ja Morant gets back, these guys have massive ceilings. So seems like expensive prices, but it's a phenomenal matchup here, even going into Utah. Like, Utah is just not going to play any defense. I do prefer Bane to Triple J. It's so hard to play Triple J with how often he gets into the foul trouble, but man, he can put up a ceiling at any point. So probably want some exposure. Not necessarily a game stack for me, I think, but just targeting ceiling on those two guys, I do like. If I was looking deeper, Tillman is a guy who's been playing solid minutes. Looked like he was going to be really productive to start the season, but it's fallen off a little bit last 2 games. With Rose out, I do think that you could potentially take some shots on John Conchar. Like, I don't know exactly who runs the one behind Smart. Maybe it's just Bane slides over and they just alternate those guys a little bit, but there's a chance that Conchar could play a little point. And like if he has some assists upside here at 4K, he's a good rebounder. He's not going to score a ton, but he could do enough peripherally if at 4K to be interesting. Probably get enough value on the slate where we don't need to consider him, but just another name I wanted to throw out there.
Yeah, I mean, Derrick Rose just had a terrible game the other night. And like maybe it's Conchar. The guy that I have a little bit of interest in here, I think like he plays enough minutes and is still kind of appropriately priced, and he just needs to, score. I mean, he's getting rebounds. He has some like steal upside and stuff. Zaire Williams at 4,800, I think, is another guy. He's getting starter minutes. He checks out early in the first quarter, which is fine because he comes back in the second quarter. Him and Triple J kind of run the second unit, and we saw that a lot when Derrick Rose left the game. So just kind of want to mention Williams as well. Rose did everyone dirty that played him the other night. Anyway, Utah side, Markkanen, he has that upside. I just hate the price tag. But like really, like Utah's been a tough team to figure out to start the season. I think John Collins is consistent, but like I don't know if 6x is enough on this slate. I know like THT is like super tilting, but like I think he has like that 7x upside that we want to maybe target in most matchups. So like he's tilting. I'm not going to sit here and say that he's not. He's a guy that is going to have these games where he's going to put up 30 fantasy points, and we're like, oh, maybe I should have played him. I know he tilts me, and there's games that he puts up 5 fantasy points, but sometimes you just have to have that DFS large field tournament mindset of, I don't care what happened the first 4 games. I know this guy has 7x upside, and I'm just going to take some shots on him.
Yeah, I really wish they would just make THT's price like 6K so we didn't have to like think about it. But
it went down.
Yeah, 4,900. I think you have to consider it like 30 minutes in the last game. I don't know that I would expect that again. Very wide range of outcomes on the minutes for THT, but he's a solid producer if he gets the run. So I'm with you. I think you just got to hold your nose and play him and know that you're going to get burned just as much as it's going to work out. Clarkson's kind of the same type of thing. His minutes are definitely more secure, but he can certainly struggle with his shot and just put up really rough games. But I think the shot volume that he does get, there's upside there at 5,600. Probably just play one of these guys, but it'd be THT or Clarkson for me.
We should note, like, the 2 games that THT played 27 and 30 minutes were the 2 games that, like, Utah kept close. So, I mean, that's just something to keep in the back of your mind when building out. I want Olynyk to play more. I mean, if you get the like game where Olynyk plays 25 minutes, he crushes. It's just good luck figuring that out. They have John Collins, Taylor Hendricks is here. The front court is really crowded. So, all right, the Battle of LA. The Clippers, the Lakers, 228.5 total, or 227.5 total. Lakers a 2-point favorites. Hachimura doubtful. Vanderbilt out for the Lakers. Back-to-back for the Clippers with Paul George and Kawhi early in the year. I know they reported that Paul George and Kawhi Leonard are to be determined. So I would be shocked if both of them play. I think one sits, if not both of them sit. I know the one thing that kind of that we have going for us here as far as the Clippers is like they just traded a bunch of people like Covington, or it was Covington, Batum, Martin,
Marcus Morris.
Yeah. So I mean, maybe they play. They're like, hey, can you guys play because we are really shorthanded already. What are your thoughts here on the Clippers?
Yeah, I mean, we may not get this news either. It's because it's in the 10 o'clock window here. But I'd be very concerned about Kawhi and Paul George. Kind of with you that one of them is likely sitting. We'll see. I just pulled up the game that's going on right now as we're recording. Looks like a close game so far. PG and Kawhi both struggling mightily with their shot. Currently 0 for 11 from the floor.
It's 37-28 with 5 minutes to go in the second quarter. Yeah.
Yikes. Man. tough scenes out there. But I don't think Harden plays yet. They're going to get a full practice in, I think, before they'll just hold Harden out in this one. I don't know. It's hard to say. Like if they both play, like I think they're fine. They're cheap enough where you can play them. I don't hate the matchup against the Lakers, but I'd be really concerned that one of them is sitting, if not both of them. I don't know.
We should
Westbrook,
note too,
maybe?
really quick. We should note that Zubac came into Tuesday's game dealing with a quad injury, ended up playing, being probable and playing, but again, another guy that potentially sits. So like maybe the Clippers just say we're punting this one and like sit George, Kawhi, and Zubac and just say, all right, Plumlee, Highland, Powell.
There's a new rule. This is a national TV game. They can only sit one of PG or Kawhi. That's a new rule this season. So one of them will play. And if one sits and one plays, then I think we have to have interest in the other one.
How do you determine that though? Like your stars. Like if you're Russell Westbrook, you're like, what up? I'm still playing.
Yeah.
I don't know. All right. So say one of them sits. We assume it'd be Kawhi. George would be a fantastic play, right?
Yeah.
So
Agree.
yeah, I mean, pay attention to the news in this one. Maybe they both play, and then it doesn't matter as much. If they both play, I think you could go back to Norman Powell and Bones Highland in this spot. I think that the minutes are going to be there. Like you said, I don't think James Harden plays in this game. I don't know if James Harden plays for the next like 4 or 5 games. We'll see. We have no idea what kind of shape James Harden is in right now. So, and how, oh man, James Harden going to the LA scene. Whew, rough times for us trying to project James Harden. So that'd be fun. Lakers side of this game, I think Anthony Davis is priced down enough where we should be playing him in this spot. I think Anthony Davis should be like 10-5. I don't see why, like any reason why he should be 9-8. He had that rough game to start the season against Denver, but he's looked fantastic in the 3 next games. And like Zubac is not going to slow this guy down. I think Anthony Davis is a phenomenal tournament play here.
Yeah, I love the AD call. It was really rough on opening night, like you mentioned, but has looked really good in the 3 games since then. So love that call. Too cheap for AD. LeBron, you worry about the minutes a little bit, but with having a little bit of rest now, I don't think you're going to see upper 30s very often. It's definitely AD over LeBron, but LeBron is fine. He's had some good games as well. Just know that you're probably only getting like 33, 34 minutes instead of 36, 37. Reeves has had a rough start to the season. Like he just hasn't been shooting the ball well, which is generally something he does exceptional. So I think there's upside with Reeves. Maybe we want the price to come down a little bit more, or maybe we want to see the good shooting game. But I like Reeves is a player that I think can put up some production in this spot. It's just maybe he's a little bit too high priced if he's still going to be struggling with the shot, but he does a little bit of assist and rebounds as well. Russell Price is about appropriate. I don't hate him as a play, but not somebody I'm seeking out. But 6,100, he's certainly playable.
All right, finish the game or slate, not the game. Sacramento at Golden State, 234.5 total here. Golden State a 7-point favorite. Fox is out for Sacramento. Lyles is out, and then the Golden State side, Kuminga is out. Obviously, De'Aaron Fox being out is huge for how the usage potentially spreads out here. Ankle sprain for De'Aaron Fox. So, I mean, Sabonis is 10-5. It's a tough price tag. Do we go and try to find some value here with Sacramento, or do we pay up for Sabonis? What are your first initial thoughts here?
Yeah, a little bit of both, I think. Love this game environment. Golden State hasn't played that fast this season, but they played super fast last season. So I think we're going to see some regression there. They currently rank 17th, but I think we're going to see them in the top 10 by the time the season is done. So I do have a ton of interest in the Sacramento team without De'Aaron Fox. I think Davion Mitchell is the guy that jumps into the starting lineup. I wish he was 3,800 instead of 4,800. Still think he's very playable. Could see 30 minutes in this spot. Just is he going to produce enough to pay off 4,800 is the question. I will certainly have some exposure to it though. I think Keegan Murray is really interesting as a guy who could pick up some usage in this spot. Like, don't get me wrong, Sabonis is the obvious target, but I'm not in love with that price tag either. He could absolutely put up 50 or 60 in this spot without Fox, but I think Fox being out is not as big of a bump to him because they play so well together in like the pick and roll. Like that's how Sabonis gets up his easy shots. So I think I'm looking more to the value guys. Keegan Murray is one that I wanted to mention, and Malik Monk off the bench potentially, or more than likely, is a guy who can have massive usage. Like if Davion Mitchell doesn't get there, it's probably because Malik Monk is playing well and just scoring a ton, and he ends up getting 30 minutes and leaves Mitchell at like 24 minutes. So I like playing Monk or Mitchell would be my favorite targets, I think, in the spot.
One game sample size, but down the stretch in the overtime in that Lakers game, Malik Monk had 13 fantasy points. He was at 18 fantasy points. He had 13 fantasy points in overtime. So, I mean, huge overtime for him. Some of that was because Fox went out. Don't get me wrong. But I mean, he showed up and played really good in that overtime. So, but my thing that I wanted to point out was who played point guard. Barnes was on the floor. We know JaVale McGee didn't play point guard, obviously. Did Kevin Huerter or Malik Monk play point guard?
I think it was probably Monk.
Because I don't think Keegan Murray, but I don't think Keegan Murray would be the point guard. So maybe Monk starts instead of Mitchell. I mean,
I think they start Mitchell, but I think Monk could play more minutes.
I think Monk plays. I think I like Monk way more in this spot.
I'm with you.
And I think his ownership might be down because maybe I don't know if it'd be down, but like the fact that he is $900 more than Mitchell is kind of nice. I don't think they want to get like Duarte a ton of minutes, so I'm not too concerned about him. I really think it's going to be Monk or Mitchell. If Mitchell starts, I have a ton of interest in Monk. I think Monk actually is the better play. Golden State side of this one. Oh, and really quick, we started the show by opening and talking about like swapping. If you are playing Sabonis and you're behind, easy switches to Anthony Davis. Just eat the costs. And I like Anthony Davis more than Sabonis for what it's worth anyway, but easy pivot there. Golden State side of this one. I mean, with like Draymond coming back, like Chris Paul, he has a little bit of upside. I feel like we just are kind of patiently waiting for his price to come down now. So I think if anybody from Golden State, it's just, hey, Steph's going to have a big shooting game. Klay Thompson's going to have a big shooting game type of thing. Like, you just get exposure to those guys. I think Draymond is okay price-wise, but I kind of want to see his minutes get up there a little bit more before I'm playing him. So not a ton of interest in the Golden State side of this game outside of just saying, hey, Klay or Steph's going to shoot lights out tonight.
Yep, that's same thoughts. It's Steph or Klay for me for the reasons that you mentioned. Draymond is still on a minutes limit, just 22 minutes in the last game. I don't see them pushing him. I'd like him into upper 20s or the price to come down, one of the two. Same thing with Chris Paul. 25 minutes in the last game. Need him back down in that 6K price range that he opened the season at. So out on those two guys. Wiggins is fine if you're looking for another piece in this game and not wanting to play up. I know it's been a really rough start to the season, but 6K for Andrew Wiggins, I don't mind that. Probably not getting to Looney. It's Steph or Klay, no doubt, and Wiggins maybe is as a little sprinkle.
All right, morning grind game, and then we will get out of here. Favorite play, we're using DraftKings pricing and scoring. Favorite play under 5K to go 7X. We have options. Who do you got?
Yeah, I've got Davion Mitchell written down here. I think he plays a ton of minutes, but we just broke that down. Like Malik Monk is a phenomenal play behind him as well. There are paths to him failing, but I feel like he starts and plays 30 minutes. And that doesn't mean that Monk would fail in that spot either. It's a great spot for both of them, but I do like Davion, assuming he grabs a start.
Mine's with the assumption that Dinwiddie and DSJ being doubtful both sit, and I'm going Lonnie Walker at 4,800.
Love it.
Over 8K to go under 5X. Who's your bust today?
I'm going to go Damian Lillard. Rough couple shooting games for him. He's got Giannis right there, and I just don't like the game environment there against Toronto, who has played at the slowest pace in the NBA so far this season.
It's weird. We're gonna stay on the same team here. I'm gonna go Giannis. I'm playing Sabonis, SGA, Curry, Tatum, Jokic, Luka over Giannis today. I think Giannis is one of the best players in the NBA. I don't think he's worth 11K in DFS, so I'm not going to be playing him a lot. That team's too good. Lillard takes up the chunk, and I just don't see these guys getting there until their prices come down. Like, I think there's a point where we're going to get Giannis at like 9,500, and we're going to be like, we have to play him now.
Yeah.
6x play. Who's your favorite 6x play today?
I'm going Brooklyn with this one. Cam Thomas has just been the dude can just score. There's no doubt about it. He's shown us that. Miami is not a matchup I love to target, but if Jimmy were to sit in this one, it becomes a much better spot for Cam as well. So with Jimmy questionable, Cam Thomas still 6,600, and dude just gets buckets.
I'm going to go to Sengun. I like this spot a lot. We talked about it. I think this is a phenomenal spot. I think he has 50-plus point upside today, and I think his price is kind of going to push the ownership down a little bit. I like Sengun a lot today. Let's get weird. GPP play of the day. Not having ownership night before is always tough for this one, but hey, let's get weird. Who do you think is going to be low owned that can get the job done?
Yeah, going to one of my favorite game environments of the slate, a guy that comes off the bench, but the usage has been incredible. Give me Brandon Miller against Houston. Love this spot for him.
Keith knows me. He just knows me. It's the exact name I had written down. Give me a second. I'm gonna go. All right. I don't know how weird this is, but let's go back to the well on Double J. Jalen Johnson for Atlanta. Kind of disappointed the other night. I think this is a great game environment. Washington and Atlanta. I think it's going to be really fast paced. I think there's opportunity in this game. So let's go with Jalen Johnson. I think his ownership goes through the roof if Trae Young sits, for what it's worth. But as of right now, he's who I'm going with because blame Keith. It's Keith's fault. He took my play. Yeah, I know. 13-game slate, and he took my let's get weird.
That is pretty insane.
That's pretty impressive. Especially he knows how much I love Brandon Miller, and he knows that I was going to pick him for that. He's like, hey, I'm going to do it anyway.
I won't lie. Like, I had him written down before we started the podcast, but when we were talking about that game, you made a comment about he could go 6 or 7x, and I was like, oh shit, Stevie's going to be. I'm going to be on him. It's either your 6x play or your GPP play. I figured you might.
He's so talented, and like there's so much opportunity for him in this offense with that second unit and stuff. And they're letting him like this early in the season, already letting him like close games and play like big minutes. Like
he's good, man.
He's really good. And like Charlotte needs someone like that. Gordon Hayward's getting older. I was just looking at Pick'em. We typically do like a Pick'em. There's not a ton of stuff out yet. We gave out a couple to pay attention to as we were going here.
Rebounds, definitely.
Yep. So Capella rebounds. Schroeder's assists. So pay attention to that. I can't do it night before if they don't have them up. So hope everyone enjoyed. I know it was a longer show. These NBA slates when they're 13 games. I can't wait till we get into this rhythm of like 7-8 games a night. I can't wait. It'd be fantastic. Getting 2 games and 13 games and 2 games and 14 games is just a lot. So that's going to wrap it up for Wednesday. Back tomorrow. We got 2 podcasts. We got football week 9, right?
Yep.
Worst NFL slate of the year. And then we got NBA as well. So we'll have both podcasts on YouTube. So if you haven't subscribed, turn on notifications, do all that. RotoGrinders Morning Grind YouTube page. And I hope everyone has a fantastic Wednesday. Back tomorrow. Good luck, everyone. We'll see you then.